Picture this. A mountain explodes with the force of 800 atomic bombs, plunging the world into darkness, famine, and chaos. This isn't the plot of a disaster movie. It is the true story of Mount Tambora, eruption in 1815, a catastrophe so massive it changed the planet and shaped history in ways we were still unraveling today. So, why has this world-shaking event been largely forgotten? Let's rewind to April 1815 on the remote island of Sumbawa in what's now Indonesia. Mount Tambora, a massive volcano, had been grumbling for months, but no one could have predicted what was coming. On April 5th, it let out a warning shot, a loud explosion that locals thought was cannon fire from a distant ship. Then, 5 days later, on April 10th, Tambora unleashed hell. The eruption was so powerful it was heard 2,600 miles away. Imagine hearing a boom from New York all the way in Los Angeles. The mountain spewed out enough ash and debris to bury a city, obliterating entire villages and killing tens of thousands instantly. By the time it was over, Tambora had lost a third of its height, and the world was about to feel its wrath. What made Tambora so catastrophic wasn't just the immediate destruction. This eruption pumped an estimated 150 cubic kilometers of ash, gas, and rock into the atmosphere. More material than any other volcanic eruption in recorded history. To put that in perspective, it's like filling 60 million Olympic-sized swimming pools with debris. Most of this material didn't just fall back to Earth, it shot into the stratosphere, high above where weather systems could wash it away. There, it spread like a global blanket, blocking sunlight and triggering what scientists call a volcanic winter. By 1816, the world was feeling the effects. That year became known as the Year Without a Summer. In Europe and North America, temperatures plummeted. Imagine waking up in July to frost on the ground, crops failing in the fields, and snow falling in New England. In Vermont, farmers reported snowstorms as late as June, and in Europe, relentless rain turned fields into swamps. The global average temperature dropped by about 1 degree Celsius, which might not sound like much, but it was enough to wreak havoc on agriculture. Food shortages spread across Europe, Asia, and North America. In Ireland, the famine caused by cold and wet conditions set the stage for worse famines to come, while in China, rice crops failed, leading to widespread hunger. This wasn't just a bad year for farmers, it was a global crisis. In Europe, bread prices skyrocketed, sparking riots in cities like Paris and London. People were desperate and governments struggled to respond. In some places, starvation drove families to eat grass or tree bark. The suffering was so intense that it reshaped societies. For example, in Germany, the famine inspired a young inventor named Karl Dreiss to create an early version of the bicycle, a running machine designed to replace horses which were dying from lack of feed. That's right. The bike you ride today might owe its existence to a volcano half a world away. But Tambora's impact went beyond hunger and hardship. The eerie, sunless skies of 1816 inspired art and literature that still resonate today. Picture Mary Shelley, stuck indoors during a rainy, miserable summer in Switzerland. She and her friends, including the poet Lord Byron, were holed up in a villa, telling ghost stories to pass the time. Byron challenged them to write something truly spooky, and Mary came up with Frankenstein, a novel born from the gloom of Tambora's volcanic winter. Meanwhile, the vivid, fiery sunsets caused by ash-scattering sunlight inspired artists like J.M.W. Turner, whose paintings from this period glow with surreal oranges and reds. Tambora didn't just change the climate, it left its mark on human creativity. So why was Tambora so much worse than other eruptions? It comes down to chemistry and scale. Tambora released massive amounts of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. This gas formed tiny particles called aerosols that reflected sunlight back into space, cooling the Earth for years. Other volcanoes, like Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, caused local devastation, but Tambora's global reach was unmatched. Its eruption was 10 times more powerful than Krakatoa in 1883, and it dwarfed even the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens. The sheer volume of material it ejected created a climate-altering shield that lingered for nearly 3 years. Let's talk about the human toll. On Sumbawa and nearby islands, the immediate death toll was staggering. Estimates range from 70,000 to 100,000 people. Pyroclastic flows, which are like avalanches of superheated gas and ash, wiped out entire communities. Tsunamis triggered by the eruption battered coastal villages, and ash falls buried farmland, making it impossible to grow food. Survivors faced starvation and disease, with no way to rebuild in the chaos. Globally, the ripple effects were even deadlier. While exact numbers are hard to pin down, historians estimate that millions suffered from famine and disease in the years that followed. In a way, Tambora's shadow stretched across continents, touching lives far from its fiery heart. Now here's a wild thought. Tambora might have even shaped the American West. In 1816, crop failures and economic hardship in the eastern U.S. pushed thousands of families to pack up and head west in search of better land. This migration helped fuel the westward expansion of the United States, as settlers sought new opportunities in places like Ohio and Illinois. So the next time you hear about the pioneers, remember that a volcano in Indonesia might have given them a nudge. But why is Tambora's story so often overlooked? Part of it is timing. In 1815, the world was recovering from the Napoleonic Wars, and global communication was slow. News of the eruption didn't reach Europe or America for months, and even then, people didn't connect the dots between a far-off volcano and their ruined harvests. Scientists of the time had no concept of a volcanic winter, so the global cooling was a mystery. It was not until the 20th century that researchers pieced together Tambora's role in the chaos of 1816. Even today, when we talk about climate change or natural disasters, Tambora rarely gets a mention compared to more recent events like Hurricane Katrina or the 2010 Haiti earthquake. Yet, Tambora's legacy has lessons for us now. It's a stark reminder of how interconnected our planet is. A single event in a remote corner of the world can trigger a chain reaction, famine, migration, even cultural shifts. Today, we're grappling with human-driven climate change, but Tambora shows us how nature can still throw a curveball. Scientists warn that another eruption on Tambora's scale could happen again, and with our globalized world, the impacts could be even more complex. Imagine a volcanic winter today, disrupting air travel, global trade, and food supply chains. It's a sobering thought. There's also a humbling takeaway here. Earth doesn't care about our plans. Tambora didn't send out a warning memo or check the calendar to see if 1815 was a convenient time to erupt. It just happened, and humanity had to adapt. Studying Tambora helps us understand how to prepare for the unexpected, whether it's a volcano, an earthquake, or shifts in our climate. Scientists today use data from ice cores, tree rings, and historical records to study Tambora's effects, and that knowledge helps us predict and plan for future disasters. One fun fact before we wrap up: Tambora's eruption created a temporary island in the Pacific Ocean, formed from floating pumice stones. Sailors reported seeing this pumice raft drifting for months, a ghostly reminder of the volcano's power. Nature is wild like that, destructive, creative, and always full of surprises. So is Tambora a forgotten catastrophe? Maybe not entirely, but it deserves more than a footnote in history. It reshaped climates, inspired art, sparked inventions, and changed the course of lives across the globe. Its story reminds us that our planet is a dynamic, unpredictable force, and we're just along for the ride. The next time you see a fiery sunset or ride a bike, think of Tambora, a mountain that roared 200 years ago and still echoes in our world today. What other secrets is Earth hiding, waiting to shake us up again?